I can definitely tell he's trying to play those mind games. We hate each other, but I'm either coming out of this with a win or I'm going to the hospital. Everything was new. The team was new. The bike was new. Elite racing was new. I had #1 plate. We had the yellow plates, leader's jersey, all these interviews, everything. It was too much. And I think that's where I struggle the most. I feel like that's probably my weakness is...
Jordan Williams, welcome to the Downtime Podcast, man. How's things with you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah, it's been a little while waiting to get you on. We've been keen for a while, but trying to find the right time. And now is that. And I want to start off away from bikes, actually, initially. I spotted a few go-karting images on your Instagram over the off-season. Is that something that you've been doing for a while? Is that something you've been getting into? Tell us a bit about where go-karting fits for you.
Yeah, that's been a funny one. So after Monster Anne, took some time off. And my dad used to race go-karts, so I thought we'd get back into that, have a little go. And we got quite a good one. It's pretty fast, and yeah, been having some fun in that whilst we've been waiting for some bits for this year and getting back up ready for 2024.
Nice. There's a big go-kart track in Monster right? Everyone goes, that's part of the whole Monster experience.
Yeah, there's a big one in Monster sort of all the teams go there and fight it out.
Yeah, I hear you laid it down and beat Loic and gave him a bit of hassle about that.
Yeah, so we all went, and obviously when you go to a higher place, everyone's on slicks. You don't get to change tyres or change anything, so everyone's on slicks. So it's so slippy, and it started raining like halfway through our session. And I knew Loic was super competitive. So I was like, right, as soon as I see him, I'm hitting him off. And I'll, yeah, I did that. And yeah, it was so funny. It was the best.
Excellent. That's good to hear, man. What else do you do, away from mountain biking, what else do you do to relax and wind down when you've got a bit of spare time?
So I'm big into supercross and motocross. So watch all that, watch all the videos, watch every heat. Yeah, I love all that. And also my dogs, spend a lot of time walking the dogs. And yeah, just not a lot really. Just take some time off. When I can't ride, I don't really do a lot. Obviously the karting and a few bits, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, and the dog's a nice distraction from, I mean, everything else is going fast related, right? Go-karts, motocross, supercross, mountain bikes, it's all about speed, but the dogs is a bit of a different pace, I guess. Yeah,
definitely. And with the dogs, they're always happy. They're always happy to see you, and they've always got energy, you know. So it's not like your parents or your friends or someone where you maybe don't want to speak to them or you're fighting or whatever. They're always happy and they always want to do things. So yeah, it's nice to have that energy and have the refreshment of those.
Nice one. Well, we've not had you on the podcast before, so we'll start with, I guess, getting a little bit of background. And it started out with motocross for you, didn't it? You were racing pretty young, eh?
Yeah, so motocross is where it all started. My dad and my uncle got me into it. And we was racing motocross as soon as we could. But some big injuries happened when I was super young, so soon stopped that.
Did that, well, what was the injury to start off with that kind of finally took you out of
it? So I put my arm up through my shoulder and also snapped my arm. So it was, as I was 7 at the time, so as a 7-year-old, it was a lot to take on, 3 operations, sort of a year of recovery and healing. So yeah, it was a big break when I was that young, and stopped the motocross, but hopefully I can get another one soon and get back into it.
Yeah, that's enough to put anyone off, man. Do you have any lasting effects from that? Has it caused anything that you feel later in your life?
Nothing. Nope, nothing at all. I think I was lucky that I almost did it when I was younger. So everything could grow back properly and heal nicely. So yeah, no problems now.
Yeah, brutal. Fair play. Well, how did you transition then from mountain biking? So obviously you've had this like enforced year of recovery and getting your arm sorted. Where did mountain biking creep into being part of your day to day?
Yeah, that's a funny one because after the motocross, it was sort of I didn't really know what to do from there or where to go. And obviously, as like a kid, especially in England, like I got into football. So football was quite a big thing. I was running around in a sling, like trying to kick a ball about. And I'd say I got to actually quite a decent level at football. Certainly not any pro or whatever, but when I was about 10, 11, thought of football was sort of the next thing I was focused on. And then I didn't really like the team sports, like you're trying your hardest and other people aren't. So I sort of soon realised that wasn't for me, although I enjoyed it and it was good fun. I don't think it was the right sport for me. So then we thought mountain bike is sort of the same thing as motocross. So we got a bike, and as soon as I got it, I just wanted to race it.
Did it take you long before you actually went off to your first race? Because you were, I guess, relatively near to Forest of Dean, which have a really cool series of downhill races that's been running for years.
Yeah, so me and my dad had two little like hardtail bikes, like XC bikes almost. And we were just pedaling them around, doing stupid things off curbs and that. And then obviously because I'd been racing motocross, I was like, let's just do a race. I want to do a race. No like XC or pedaling or anything, just a downhill as fast as you can go. And then just looked up downhill mountain bike races, and the Forest of Dean like mini downhills came up, and I think that was a great starting point for me.
Yeah, it's a perfect place, right? It's like relatively low key. The tracks are pretty accessible for everyone. Good crowd of people there. Like, how was it though? Because you were competing, I guess, to start off with on a hardtail.
Yeah, so on a hardtail to start off with, like football shoes on, like Adidas trousers. Just, I guess there's a lot of kids start really, and yeah, just was racing, and then it didn't take me long before I was like, I want to be good at this. I want to win, and then got a downhill bike pretty soon. We didn't really understand much about it, so we weren't like get a trail bike because that's better. We sort of got a massive downhill bike, and just tried to do as quick as I could, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah, what was that downhill bike? What was your first full sus?
So it was a Nuke Proof Pulse, the like 2014 model. Yeah, quite a chunky one, 26-inch wheels, and yeah, it was a good starting point. I won my first national on that a few years later, so yeah, it was a good bike.
Yeah, you won your first ever race on that bike, did you? Is that right?
It wasn't my first ever race, but I won my first national on that bike. Yeah.
Yeah, nice, good place to start from. So you've gone kind of hardtail to full sus. You started to get these wins. Was it the winning that you got a taste for? Was that what kept you coming back, or did you just kind of get into the process of going racing? What was it that you loved about it, I guess?
Definitely was the racing and the winning. I wasn't such a fan of just like riding. Obviously, I loved riding, but it was the racing and the atmosphere, the pressure and the intense like race atmosphere. Yeah, I loved it, and I just obviously like I could race pretty much most weekends with the Forest of Dean. There was like these Tavy Woodland races, and there's the Steve Peat Still City race. So we were racing a lot. Yeah, and just loved it.
Yeah, and your dad at that point, anyway, am I right in thinking he was a truck driver? So like putting in the miles and getting to all these places was no issue for you guys, right?
Yeah, no, my dad still works as a truck driver, and we had to drive a lot. I have nothing round my house, so everywhere you want to ride, you've got to drive quite far, and especially for the racing, you've got to drive into Wales, and yeah, a lot of driving.
Yeah, putting in the miles, man. So how do you go then from like getting some success at like smaller local races, getting your full sus bike, getting to a little bit of nationals, to getting to the point where you're recognised at level where you get signed to the Madison Saracen development team? Like what steps did you go through to get there?
So moving from like Forest Dean races and the smaller races, we're racing nationals and the Pierce events. So probably doing around 15, 20 races a year. At quite a high level. I think when I was racing, like my year of people and like the years around me, was at like a high level. You see a lot of the riders now, like Ethan Craig, like Dennis Luffman. There was a lot of people that were super quick in my age. So I think that helped a lot with the speed and pushing me on.
Yeah, definitely. And it is at the level at those races, which I guess, you know, Pierce is a regional series, but the caliber of riders that turn up to that year in, year out is pretty impressive, right? It's cool to see those events getting so well attended.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think also when I was in the juvenile categories, youth categories, the nationals were a lot popular for the elite riders. So you used to see a lot of the top like World Cup riders and top juniors there. So yeah, it was a lot more of like a national series than it is now.
Yeah. So what put you on the radar of Will Longner? Because I guess it would have been Will that sort of spotted you for that Madison Saracen development squad.
Yeah, so I think it was 2018. Yeah, it would have been 2018. I won national champs and the national overall as a juvenile. And then we were speaking with Matt Walker and Will, obviously, about having sort of a development team. They hadn't had a development team for a few years, so I think they wanted to get back onto it, and they picked me up, and yeah, it was cool for them to do that, and I'm always thankful for them.
Yeah, it's awesome. What kind of support does that involve then? What do they provide you with?
So I had a mechanic at the races. Got all like the spares I needed, spare wheels, spare derailleurs, the things you need. Not obviously like a factory support, but I certainly had sort of the best like pit area and best opportunity from the youth riders.
Yeah. And is it a given then that once you're signed for that like development squad that they'll take you to World Cups once you're old enough, or do you kind of need to prove yourself?
No, I think you've definitely got to prove yourself. I don't think it's a case of you win a few races and you're on a team, then that's you into World Cups, you know. So then when I was in my first year youth, I still had to race like Dennis Luffman, Ethan, like all these top riders now. And I won the overall in that year. And it was a close race, came down to the last race of the year, and yeah, it's had some good results, but obviously the year after we had COVID, so had no racing, so Will and Madison, they sort of had to believe in that first year and take me to the World Cups.
Fair play. You made the most of COVID though, right? Didn't you go out to Europe and like ride some of the tracks that you knew you were going to be racing the following year?
Yeah, we obviously, because there was no races at all, I didn't race for, I think before my first World Cup, it was nearly 2 years I hadn't raced for.
Whoa.
So me and my dad made a big effort to go out to, say, Val di Sole was a big place. I knew that Val di Sole was going to be at World Champs in my first year junior. So we were like, right, let's go to Val di Sole. That's probably the hardest track out there. The most lines, so it's the hardest to learn. We went out there for like about a week. Did 3 or 4 days riding, and made sure we sort of were up to pace with like the last year's race there. And so I could just get used to that track and see how I would actually deal with the track.
Yeah. Was that pretty eye-opening though, right? Because you'd have been last year youth age at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. It was when I got there, I was like, okay, this is real, you know. My first run, like I didn't track walk it, didn't do anything, just straight up on the lift, straight down it. And I remember just like my first run down it, I had to walk like half of it. I was like, oh my God, this is gnarly. And it hit me then. I was like, wow, okay, World Cups aren't as easy as you may think, you know. And then after those few days, getting used to it, doing more and more runs, I was able to get the lines and actually ride down it. And by the end of that week, we were there. I was timing, and obviously timing from a day uplifting to a race is way off. You can't compare it at all. But I remember I was actually quicker than the junior winning time there from the year before. So you can't compare it, but you can kind of. So I knew I was on pace, kind of.
Yeah, that's insane. That's impressive. From walking sections the first day you got there to being up to a pace like that by the end is pretty insane. So yeah, rolling into your first World Cup then, I think it would have been Leogang 2021. How did it feel to be there finally? You've had this big enforced break from racing. It's your first time at a world level race with all of these people around you that I'm sure you've looked up to over the years. How did you feel to finally be there?
It was so cool, a dream come true. Like racing World Cups, like it's the highest level of downhill. So yeah, it felt really cool in the pits, all these top riders, and yeah, it felt really special to be there. And also, like before the race, I was feeling really confident actually riding with Matt and the team, and I actually said to my dad, like, I'm going to win the first World Cup. I felt super confident. And I got there and I was like, okay, maybe not. This is real now.
How was it then? How did the race itself go from your perspective?
It was a tough one actually, my first World Cup. On practice day, or even just before qualifying, the practice before qualifying, I probably had the biggest crash of my life still now. Cracked my helmet, like could barely walk. Huge crash. People may have seen it on it's probably on Pink Bike somewhere. Yeah, massive crash. Got down. I definitely had some sort of head injury thing, but just cracked on with it. You know, I know it was a bit dangerous, but I wasn't scared. And yeah, finished fourth in the end. So I was actually really happy with the weekend.
Yeah, it's a solid start considering that's your first elite race and back racing after COVID. And the season, it was kind of an odd, weird season, that first one after COVID. It was a bit short. We rolled into Malaysia, I think, where you were second. Jackson took his first win. You were second at World Champs in Val d'Isole to Jackson. Were you starting to get like fired up at this point? Like you know, you're getting so close to getting those wins. It looks like you went into Snowshoe with maybe, I don't know, a different approach or a new attitude to things, because the results from there were pretty impressive, eh?
Yeah, no, I got a few seconds. I was second a lot that year to Jackson. And still had some other big crashes, a lot of learning. And then those last two races in Snowshoe, I was doing there the long flight there. I was like, okay, I'm either coming out of this with a win or I'm going to the hospital, and not like, you know, I was all out for those last two. I was not holding back.
Yeah. Did you feel like you were taking significant risks, or do you think it was just a bit more of a confident approach that you took to the track that kind of paid off in the results?
I think the first round there, it was definitely all out, like not scared, just I either win or I crash. And then the second race was definitely more calculated and a smoother ride.
Yeah, fair. And then 2022, again, it looked like you kind of were maybe more comfortable, more familiar with being at the races. It was a super strong battle between you and Jackson throughout the season. It looks like Snowshoe kind of was the undoing of any like overall campaign though, I guess. Like, having gone so well in Snowshoe the previous year, how did you feel going in? Like, what went on that weekend for you?
Yeah, so Snowshoe that year, like you say, it was sort of, that was the weekend where it sort of decided the overall. And I was going in there super confident. It was so wet, like ridiculous. And everyone knows what Snowshoe is like in the wet. It's pretty much impossible. So I laid it all down on the line like the year before. And I was doing well. I think I was up a lot by the split. I'm not exactly how much by, but I was up a lot and then just crashed in the final section. I was struggling with that section all week. And yeah, it slipped away from me there, but it was okay.
Were you pretty quick to refocus towards like Mont-Saint-Anne, or did you shift focus all the way to World Champs that was coming up in Léger after that block?
Yeah, so after that race, it was almost the attitude I had in Snowshoe in 2021, but slightly different, a year more experience. It was sort of like, I'm going to win qualifying, I'm going to win the race for all of those last races. I was like, I'm doing it. I'm winning qualifying and race. I think it was 3 more races. So yeah, I won qualifying for I think all of them, and then I only won 2 of them. Jackson beat me in Mont-Saint-Anne, and I won Worlds and I won Val de Sol. But yeah, it was good.
Yeah, solid end to the season, and that Léger World Champs was an incredible event to be at, just because of the atmosphere, the track, and everything that went on. It must have felt pretty good to win it. Like, talk us through your week there. How was it?
It was a good week. It was pretty stressful. Like in the moment, I knew it was a lot of stress because I didn't want to go out of juniors without like a world title. I wanted to win. I knew the overall had gone by then, and this was my last chance to win like a world title in juniors. So I put a lot of pressure on myself to win that weekend. And yeah, I really went for it. I tried to block the pressure out though. I was having a good time. The team, Harry Malloy, and those we were having some good laughs. And obviously the rain came in, and it made it so hard for race day. And you obviously saw Jackson crashed, and I nearly crashed a lot of times. A lot of the other people crashed. But yeah, I was happy to come away with a win that weekend, and it really, like, I don't know how you'd say it, but relieved a lot of like tension on my shoulders winning Worlds.
Yeah, like you say, you piled a lot of pressure on yourself for that result. How did you go about trying to like alleviate that pressure in the run up to the actual race run then? What kind of stuff were you doing through the week to try and offset that pressure, other than, I guess, just having a bit of fun with the team?
Not a lot really. Like I say, just having fun with the team. Like, wasn't worried about I have to be in bed by this time or I have to do this. Like, we're in the hotel we were staying. It's quite a funny story. There was this like toy donkey or toy horse thing, and Jack Chapman, one of the mechanics at the time, and Harry Malloy, we were putting it outside of each other's bedrooms. So when you wake up in the morning, you'd be like surprised by this horse thing. And I put it outside of Harry's bedroom, and when he opened it in the morning, it fell over, smashed up into pieces, or the head flew off. Like, everyone woke up with this horse just smashed on the floor. And it just sort of set the tone for the race day, because we were just all laughing in the pits. It was so funny. It doesn't sound that funny, but in the moment it was really funny. And yeah, it was a really good attitude and like a good atmosphere for race day.
Yeah, it makes a massive difference, eh? And you were very stoked to take that jersey. I remember seeing you there with a very big grin on your face all afternoon watching the elite racing. And you took that jersey to as many UK races as you could, partly, I guess, because you wanted to spend some time in the stripes, because there isn't a lot of time when you're moving up from junior to elite, because you know you're going to have to go back into a normal jersey. But I think you also wanted to show people what was possible, right? In the UK at these like smaller kind of regional races like Forest of Dean, the Pierce Series and that kind of stuff. Like, why is that so important to you?
Yeah, so obviously we only had one World Cup after Worlds, so I didn't really get to wear it much. And then I knew there was two Pierce rounds, and the last national round after the World Cup season. And I really wanted to do them. Like the team were like, "Why do you want to do these? You know, there's no point. You've won it." But I think because it was only 3 or 4 years ago that I was in the position of wanting to be in this position, I kind of wanted to show the kids at the Pierce and the National that this is possible. It is like very possible. And just to enjoy the UK scene, like enjoy it with my mates, enjoy just riding, and yeah, and obviously get time in the stripes before I had to hang it up.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Good on you. So when in that season did you start having discussions with Laurent about a potential move to Specialized Gravity? Like, how early did that conversation start?
It was pretty early, actually, sort of round 3 in like Leogang. Nothing serious, just a chat, like, how are you, you know, just the normal things you would do. And then it built on and built on. And then sort of by World Champs and the last World Cup, it was like, okay, we need to make a decision now. And some things, some people weren't happy, some were happy. There was a lot of talks going on, and it took a while to get like the deal done. But yeah, we got it done, and I couldn't be happier.
I was going to say, you must have been stoked. What was it like the first time you all got together in that team? Because I heard Loic saying that I think he wasn't keen initially on having another rider join the team, but Lauren ignored him and signed you and brought you on board anyway. Like, when were you all together for the first time, and like, how was that being the I guess the new guy in the team?
Yeah, so we were first together in January 2023. We all met up in California, went to the Specialized HQ. Didn't do any riding. Well, we did a bit of trail riding, but no downhill riding, nothing serious. All went to watch Supercross and did a few things. And yeah, it was pretty surreal. Like, Loic was sort of my idol. When I was first started riding, first started racing, he was world champ in 2015. And that's when I first started. So he was sort of like, whoa, he's the one that's amazing, you know? So yeah, when I first met him and I was on the same team as him, it was like, this is cool. Okay.
It's pretty, especially, yeah, I found an interview, I think you were 11 in it on YouTube, where you were asked who you look up to, and Loic was the first name that came out of your mouth. So it must have been super strange to suddenly be hanging out and going Supercross and things like that, knowing you're going to ride together on the same team.
Yeah, no, it was really cool.
Yeah.
Deep inside, I was really happy, and I was trying to act cool and everything. But yeah, it was so cool to be around Loic and Finn also. Like, same as when I was growing up, Finn was the one winning juniors and the one coming into elite who was gonna win it all, and he's the new one on the block. So yeah, both of them. It was so cool to be on the team with them.
Definitely. And it's a big change for you from like bike and kit side of things. How did you go about getting up to speed on it? Because you've got new bike, new suspension, brakes, tires. Like, it's a big change from the Madison setup.
It was. I think the only thing we had the same was the wheels. So we had to adjust a lot, and my mechanic Nath. He does a lot for me. We hate each other, but yeah, I'm really thankful for what Nath does, and we did a lot of testing, a lot of riding, and a lot of testing, and we got to a really good point, and we had a lot of bike time. So yeah.
Did you travel abroad, or did you just kind of get stuck into a British winter? Where did you do a lot of that work?
No, we did a lot of it in Portugal, Ponta de Lima, Lusa, Fort William. We did a lot, and also a lot in the UK.
Yeah, and you run a pretty different setup on the suspension to Finn and Loic, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, every time I sit on their bikes, I'm like, oh, this is horrible.
What's the difference? Like, how would you describe the two different approaches?
I would describe Finn as he tries to have his bars as low as possible. Not sure why. That's just Finn's setup, and his suspension's super hard. Loic is a bit similar to mine. But also completely different. Mine, I like to have it as fast and as fast as possible. I like the feeling of bouncing around and playing with the bike. I like the bike to feel really playful. And yeah, that works for me and not them, I guess.
Yeah, is it hard in that situation where you're joining a team and you know, I mean, those guys have both got really good results under their belts and they're running the same equipment effectively in a different way. Is it tempting to go down that way? Like, how much of what they do did you try, or did you just go straight towards what you know you're familiar with from the past?
Yeah, no, I think me and Nath are really confident in each other. I believe Nath, and we did our own thing. We didn't really do much testing with Loic and Finn. And we knew we had a pretty individual setup where it's super fast and super soft. So we knew that let's just get stuck in, let's make it work for us. And obviously it did work really well, and a big thanks to Nath for helping me with that.
Yeah, good on him. And you had a super strong final junior season. You've been putting in times that were very much going to challenge the elite riders. You must have felt pretty good heading into this season or the last season. And I think I heard you say, I think this is right, you had a goal of getting a top 5 result and you wanted to be top 10 at every race. Is that right?
Yeah, so super strong junior season. And I was confident going into elites, but not like, oh, I'm going to win every race. I just was I want to get a good result. I wanted to get a top 5, which is a podium. That was my one goal, and I wanted to be in that top 10 just for sort of the protection status, and also just to be sort of within it, you know. And we got one of them. We got the win, and we got the top 5, but we didn't quite get in the top 10. A few of the other races let me down.
Yeah, and you got that monster lid, right? That was just before the start of the season as well. So that must have added to the confidence that you roll into Lenzerheide with. Yeah,
definitely got that just before Lenzerheide. So I felt like an actual elite rider then, with the monster hat, the big team, the cool teammates. You know, it was, yeah, I felt like an elite rider.
That's good. Yeah, super good. And so we're at Lenzerheide. It's your first opportunity to show what you've got against all the elite boys. You're obviously feeling good about life. But a lot of riders, not a massive fan of that track. Do you get on with it?
I didn't. I do now. Yeah. No, actually, Lenzerheide was the one I hated the most. I really didn't like it. And then, obviously, this year I do now, but I think that's mainly because they changed the start. The start used to ruin it for me because it was always straight in. You didn't get any sort of pedaling or no warm up, and it was always straight in. This year they changed it, and I could warm up before I started and get into it.
Yeah, And you, I heard you say again, you did quite a lot of visualizations that weekend. Was that a relatively new thing for you?
I've tried it before, but not as much as I did that weekend. And I also spent a lot of time on track walk the night before race day. And I was looking at the lines, and I found this line that nobody was doing in that real steep section. I don't think it really gained me anything because I did well on the rest of the track. I thought it would be like, that's the line that's going to win the race, you know. But it actually didn't help me at all. Like, maybe just helped me mentally. I knew I was on that line and I knew it would be quick. But yeah, did a lot of visualization as well.
Nice.
Stayed up late that night. Tried to learn like every rock, every breaking point of the track, and obviously it helped. But it didn't help in races later. I don't think you can always do the same thing.
Interesting. So the process maybe doesn't work the same every week, kind of week in, week out. And we had this whole new format this year. It was the first time we'd kind of done it, I guess, other than the test event, which meant we've got semi-finals runs on the day. I believe you watched Loic's semi-final runs back before the race run. So we have that opportunity to do that, I guess. And Loic, I think, was the fastest. He won the semis. It's pretty confident though, right? It's quite risky, I would imagine, mentally to go and watch that. Because if you see something, you're like, oh, I've not done that line, or I don't know that line, or were you nervous to watch that, or were you like, the right thing for me to do is to check out what the hell Loic's doing here?
Yeah, no, because after the semis, I finished 9th, I think. Yeah, 9th. And I was quite far back, actually. I'm not sure how far back, but I was quite far back, and I had a good run. Like, I pushed it and went pretty fast. I was like, whoa. I was actually like, I'm not going to win today. I told myself, I'm not going to win. I may as well just try and go as fast as I can and see what I can do. And try and get that top 5. So I watched Loic's run, and I could just see he was braking way less. He wasn't braking there, he wasn't braking here. And then obviously, because I did the visualization, I already knew what was there and where I was braking before. And I knew he could hit it like it, so I knew I could. And yeah, just went into that race run, and I was in the gate like, I'm not going to win this. I literally told myself I'm not going to win. I've just got to try and do the best I can, and yeah, it worked out really well.
Yeah, so you kind of overlaid Loic's semi-final run into your visualization to check that you could do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. And I could just see he was like on the limit, and I was far from it in the semis.
Interesting. So you were in the gate saying, well, I'm not going to win it, but you know, maybe I can do a top 5 here. How did you feel when you got to the bottom of the track? Did that change, or did you still think you were on a kind of top 5 run?
Yeah, when I got to the bottom, I was like, I said it in the interviews afterwards, I was like, that's the best I had. I hit every section pretty much perfect. Wasn't like crazy speed. You saw like Loris made some mistakes and Loic made some mistakes. And they were probably pushing harder, but I felt like I pushed it right on the limit, but just so I didn't make the mistakes. And yeah, had an insane run, probably the best run of my life. And yeah, even when I'd finished, I was like, I'm not going to win. Like, I didn't think I would win, but yeah, I knew I would get the top 5 when I crossed the line.
Yeah, and you're sat in the hot seat watching last man down the hill, teammate, hero, Loic Bruni, and he's green, 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 and then suddenly it goes red. What's going on in your head? Like, that's an insane experience. It must have been wild.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, seeing Loic Bruni come down, like, at the last split, red on your time. Yeah, I was just speechless. I didn't know what to do. Like, yeah, it was crazy, especially with elites. Like, everyone watching this race. Like, juniors, it's sort of not many people watches, and sort of, well done, you won juniors. But when you win elite, it's just goes mental, and all the fans and the media attention after the race was crazy to deal with.
Yeah, what was that like? Because I guess Madison like tend to be a team that's maybe not like thrown into the middle of the pits. Like you've got Syndicate, Specialized, there's Pivot. Like there's always seems to be a bit of a central area where a lot of fans and media kind of gather, and suddenly you're in that anyway in the Specialized pit, but it's you that they want, right? How did it feel? How did you deal with that?
It was hard. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. Like, obviously I was so stoked about winning the race. I just wanted to enjoy it and like embrace it as much as I could. And obviously all this media attention, everyone coming over. You got Finn Isles and Loic Bruni next to me, and they wanted to talk to me. And I was just in my first elite race. It was crazy to like think and be in that moment. And yeah, it was. I tried to deal with it as best as I could, and Laurent helped me as best as he could. Laurent's a great team manager. I really respect him, and I think he's the best person for like a team manager role. He's so fair, and he always helps you. He's super honest, and yeah, I think without Laurent, I would have struggled more. But yeah, I think I dealt with it the best I could.
Do you think you'd have done anything differently given what you know now? Like a year down the line, would you have handled that that attention, that pressure over that week after Lenzerheide in a different way?
Definitely. I think you can always improve on things you've done in the past. But in the moment, I felt like I did everything I could with the knowledge I had.
Yeah, fair. But overwhelming, I guess. I remember seeing you in Leogang and you were like, I feel a bit like tired, I guess. Like all that attention, you're filming with Warner Brothers Discovery, all kinds of things. Like everyone wants a piece of you. How was it going back to back straight to another race? Because there's kind of no real let up, right? You've got a travel day, pit set up, and you're back into track walk again.
Yeah, it was tough, like I say. After the race, I wanted that attention. I really wanted the media attention, but like whilst that was going on, it was sort of only a day, and then it was back into another race week. So I wanted the attention, I wanted everything, but I also needed like a week to get over it. But instead it was into another race week. So yeah, it was hard to have that race mindset and the focus needed whilst everything else was happening.
Was it a kind of a distraction then, I guess, away from how you would normally approach a race week? Is it more that than like a fatigue or anything from it?
I wouldn't say it was like a distraction. It was more just learning it. Because I feel like if I went into that now, I'd know what would happen. I know what would like come to me, so I could handle it. But it was just because everything was new. The team was new. The bike was new. Elite racing was new. I had number 1 plate, well, number 11 plate, but I had number 1 plate. We had the yellow plates, leader's jersey, all these interviews, everything was new. And to take that on within the space of like a week was just it was too much in the moment.
Yeah, fair. And how was the vibe in the team? Because it's a super competitive bunch of riders, you three. Like Laurent's a brave man putting you all together, but it seems to be working. But I'm guessing those guys didn't enjoy being beaten by the new teammate straight away. Like how was that vibe in the team?
I think it was better than some people may think. We got on really well. We play, I'm sure as people have heard before, but like Uno and stuff. And it gets competitive, but it's not to the point where everyone's sort of getting angry. Like, obviously you storm off, you throw the cards, but it's not in an angry way. We all enjoy our company. We feel like we can always help each other. And like I say, Laurent is such a good person, so he knows what to do and he knows what to say to people. And yeah, it was actually really good. We were all happy. The team environment for the first round and even like the second round, it was, yeah, the team was great.
Yeah, that's cool. And Loic has been open, I think, about saying he doesn't mind a little bit of mind games, and that's all part of racing and being competitive with people. Do you feel like that's been part of things at all this season? Like, he's obviously got this reputation and this incredible string of results behind him, and he knows how to get into people's heads, I think, and just maybe help make them second guess themselves. Like, do you feel that that's been something you've had to get used to as well, like that mental side of things?
Kind of, but I know, like, me and Loic for sure, like, tell someone like, "Oh, you're terrible, Loic," or he'll say something to me, and not so much with Finn, but Loic, I can definitely tell he's trying to play those mind games. But I think because he said that he like tries to play those mind games, I sort of knew it was coming. Like, I knew he was trying to wind me up. So it didn't really, it didn't really affect me. I knew he was trying to put me off. And I don't think that was why I got some bad results later on in the year. I think that was just part of first year elite, learning the process, and a few mistakes happen. I don't think those mind games really affected me. I just found them funny.
It's good to hear, man. So Leogang, you finished up 13th, which would be a good result for any first year elite, but you've just come off the back of taking a win in the first round, first time of asking. Like, had your personal expectations changed, or were you so overwhelmed by all the attention and everything that went on in that week that 13th was like a result you were pretty happy with?
Yeah, no, obviously I always want to win. Like, every time I go somewhere, I'm going there to win. But you also, like, a top 5, top 10 is an amazing result, and even a top 15 in elite now is a great result. It's hard to do a top 15 in elite. So I was happy, but also because I had, number one, the leaders jersey, everybody looking. It was kind of a disappointment. Like, how good would it be for a first year elite go and win the first 2 rounds? Like, that would be cool. But it's not always a fairy tale, so I was happy, but also main reason, I was just like relieved it was done. I could relax, and some of that pressure gone with like the leaders jersey and stuff.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And you came into Val di Sole firing on all cylinders, it looked like. You qualified first. I think you were second in semis, but with a flat, is that right?
Yeah, Val di Sole came up. I was back to that confidence. I knew I could win. Like, I was there. I was ready to take the win there again. Won qualies. Semis second with a flat tyre. Didn't go flat towards the end. Yeah, it was towards the end. We got Cush Tour in, so I could still ride it. It didn't really look flat until the last sprint, but I could feel it. Maybe like a minute from the bottom. Yeah, second in semis, and then finals it rained, and I hate when it rains just before finals.
It's hard to decide, right, what to do, I guess, because that track as well, like, ducks in and out the trees. So some of it's exposed to the rain, some of it's pretty well protected. You really have no idea what's going on. Did you get any radio communication from other riders on the team that had already gone down the hill?
Not really, no, but when I was warming up, when I was going up on the lift, I was actually watching the live feed, and I seen Loic out of the gondola on his race run, and I could see he was sliding about and he was struggling a bit. But then when I was warming up, like 5 minutes before my run, I watched the live timing, and I could see that people were putting in decent times. Not as quick as, I don't think it was as quick as semis, but I could see you could push it. And I think that's where I struggle the most. I feel like that's probably my weakness, is when it's wet, but you can still push as hard as the dry. So yeah, had a good run. Not great, nothing like amazing. But got down with a decent one. I think I was second or third at the splits. And then just that last corner, all week I was sort of jumping into it. And there's a big hole at the bottom. And I was just tensing and holding on. And then just as it was wet, just slipped a bit, collapsed, and yeah, unfortunately crashed. But it was a good learning week.
Yeah, and would have been on for a good result, I reckon, if you'd have not had that incident near the bottom.
Yeah, I think I would have been top 3 if I didn't crash. So
yeah,
I had that confidence from there as well.
Yeah, good stuff, man. And the next World Cup round after Fort William World Champs was Val Nord. And again, the quali run was good, right? 4th place.
Yeah, another good quali, 4th. Super happy. And then again, the weather rolled in and churned things up.
And do you put it down to that, just like not quite feeling confident enough to attack maybe as hard as other riders might be? I guess Loic's a good example. Like, he seemed to go out of that gate with a mentality that he was just going to go as hard as physically possible and make the conditions work for him, whereas maybe you were more conservative.
Yeah, so it was all started the night before race day. We got a text about 9:30, I'm pretty sure, which is late on a race weekend. And we got a text that we're actually, I think it was like 8:30. We're racing at 8:30, practices at like 7. So it meant we were having to set our alarms for like 4:30, 5 in the morning. And that's pretty early for when you're not used to it. It's pretty early to get up at 5, go in the gondola, because you have to get the gondola up to the pits at Andorra. In the pitch black, it's freezing cold, the track's wet for the first time. Practice at like 7, so you're like trying to open your eyes, like riding down. And then we get the news that, oh no, we're not racing. We get more news at 12. And then by the time it's 12, I'm like, we don't know if we're racing, so I don't know what mindset to be in. But I'm also like knackered at the same time because we're up so early. And then like we get the news that we're racing like later than we normally do. It was like 4:30, 5 that we were racing. So you're up. It's a long day. You're like racing. You're practicing at 7. You're riding it then. It was all like jumbled up, and it was also like wet. And then it sort of dried out. And then I got back into the mindset of, okay, let's do this. And then when we were warming up, it rained again. And I did a few silly things that a first year elite would do, or even a junior would do. Like I didn't bring a coat up to the top. So yeah, it just didn't really work out that week.
Yeah, fair. So where was your head at this point in the season? Because you've come off the high of this win, you've had all this attention, and then the results, like the pace is clearly still there, right? The qualies and semis pace shows, but it hasn't converted into race results for like the rest of that early part of the season. Was that getting into your head? How are you feeling?
Yeah, so like you say, I knew I had the pace, like quali first, like quali 4th, all these good qualifying results and semi-final results. I knew the pace was there and I knew I could be consistently in that top 5. But like crashes and the weather and a few things happening, I was honestly getting a bit frustrated and I wasn't enjoying it as I was at, say, Val di Sole and Lenzerheide, and I could really feel myself not enjoying it. And some people were saying things to me and it would just annoy me a bit more. Like even people close to me, like my family, like my dad is an amazing support. He does so much for me. But he said a few things that annoyed me, and it was a bit like just leave me alone. Like nothing bad. He was just trying to help, but it didn't help for me in that moment. And yeah, I was just getting frustrated and I wasn't enjoying it. And I was struggling because downhill is what I enjoy. So I took some time off. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm like, took some time off, didn't do anything, didn't train, just did whatever I wanted. And then Worlds came. And a couple of weeks before Worlds, I got back into it. I was enjoying it again. Training hard, training as much as I could, doing everything I could. Worlds week came round. And yeah, I really tried hard for Worlds. Like, did everything I thought I could. And then again, the weather came in, a bad result. And I went straight back to like being a bit annoyed and not really enjoying it as much as I should.
Yeah, was it hard to drag yourself out of that? Because once we were into Valnod, it was those 3 races back to back, which is pretty hectic, especially when you've got qualies, semis and race days. Because it looked like that was the part of the season where your results, like even the pace in the qualies and the semis wasn't where we'd normally expect to see you. And I think it left a lot of people questioning what was happening.
Yeah, it was hard. Like, I didn't qualify at Leger. And that's where I won Worlds the year before, and it was dry. I think it was dry all week there, and I think it was purely just because I was a bit annoyed at people. Some things weren't clicking as they do other times. I don't know really. It was a lot to take on in the year, and I really struggled at some points, and people were saying things at the wrong time, and yeah, it was hard to click everything together.
How did you sort of pull yourself out of that? Because it looked like, certainly Snowshoe looked like you were back to the Jordan that we're familiar with, like you were 14th quali, 10th semi, 7th like in the race, working your way back up to like the pace that you'd hope to be on, top 10 result, like you said you were after. Like, what was different about Snowshoe? Had you changed anything? Had you been able to like improve that mindset, or what was going on?
Yeah, so before Snowshoe we had another bit of a break. Took some time off, just relaxed, forgot about bikes. Took the dogs out and just tried to reset. Me, Laurent and Nath sat down and we just said, let's forget about it for 2 weeks, reset. And I came into Snowshoe with a good attitude, and I was enjoying it again. I was happy to be back at a race. Me and Nath did a bit of testing there on some of the little tracks in Snowshoe. And yeah, I just tried to enjoy riding, didn't put any pressure on myself. Obviously, it was a bit wet that week, so I was struggling a bit, as others were. And it dried out and dried out and dried out. And by race runs, it was the driest it had been all week. And I felt better and better through the week. I kept saying to Laurent, the more it dries out, the quicker I'm going. And then, yeah, the race came round and got a good result. And I was really happy with that week. I was stoked to be back up there at the front of the field.
And enjoying it again?
Yeah, I was really enjoying it again. I needed that good result to like enjoy it, you know. Yeah, it was good. I had a good time in Snowshoe.
Nice. And then rolling into Mont-Saint-Anne, final round of the year, a relatively long season compared to the previous year, I guess. Like, how are you feeling coming into that race, and how did it go?
So yeah, I had that confidence and the happiness from Snowshoe coming into Mont-Saint-Anne. I felt like really good all week. It was dry all week, pretty much. Yeah, good quali result. We had a bit of a mechanical. So quali didn't go as I wanted. I wanted to win quali. I knew I could win quali. I was like warming up, like I'm gonna win quali. But had a bit of mechanical, so it held us back a bit. But I had the confidence that I'm gonna win. Like that night went really good. Felt super confident. Practice was good. I was like, okay, this is on. And I said to Nathan Laurent, like, I can win this. I can really win this. And I was happy. And then about an hour and a half before semis, I think it rained. And then as soon as the rain came down, it was like, okay, we're back to this. We're back to having to go quick, straight away in the wet. And it's not like the wet holds me back. Like I've won races in the wet. I've won nationals in the wet against Charlie Hatton, who's now the world champion. And I've won races before in the wet. So it's not the wet that holds me back. It's not the dry or anything else that holds me back. It's just the sudden changes that I feel like it's hard to adapt to.
Interesting. So how do you go about trying to get better at that? That's like not, because you can't just go to somewhere that you know and do it, really, I guess. Like it's not like, oh, I'll go to Dovey on a wet day and see if I can ride well, because you know you can.
Yeah.
Like how do you overcome that like ability to transition from dry conditions to wet conditions and still be on a race pace?
Yeah, it's hard. Like I spoke to Loic and he said he's had the same problem. Like although he struggled in the wet anyway, like I knew I could ride the wet, I knew I could ride the dry. It was just that transition from being dry in practice to having to race in the wet. And he said it took him years. He said it took me years to do it. But he finally figured it out. He finally figured how he could just switch and go flat out straight away. And for me, I think part of it is experience. It is just happening and happening. You've got to get used to it. But yeah, it is a hard one you can't really go out and practice it. You can't, I don't know, you can't just pick a day where it's going to rain at 12 and you're out riding, you know. But I think I can come into a better like mental state, and I can be more confident, which I think I've worked out this off season. Hopefully, we'll see if it happens again.
Yeah, interesting. Do you do much work with like a mental coach or any of that kind of stuff? Like, how have you approached that?
No, I don't at all really. I've tried a bit in the past, but I feel like for myself, I can figure it out. Obviously, this year I had some struggles, and I struggled mentally in parts. But I feel like a lot of the time I can work it out. I feel like now I've had everything. I've gone from winning my first World Cup, I've gone from winning a World Cup to not qualifying, to getting a half decent result. I feel like this year or last year now, it's sort of, I had a lot thrown at me, and I've learned a lot. So I feel like this year I'll be a lot more experienced and prepared for those things that happen again.
Yeah, you've almost like fast forwarded the experience curve, I guess, a little bit. Like you've had a whole lot of experience thrown at you in one season.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like a lot has happened and I've learned a lot. So, yeah.
So looking back on the season, well, I guess looking back on the season at the end of the season and looking back on the season now with a bit more distance from it, like, were you able to feel happy with it initially when the season finished? And I assume now looking back, you do feel fairly happy with what you've done. Yeah,
no, of course I've got to be happy. Like, I won my first World Cup as an elite. Yeah, how can you not be happy? You know, I got some other good results, some other bad results, but like I say, because I had so much thrown at me, I'm happier than it just being an easy year, getting a few top tens, maybe a podium. You know, I'd prefer for it to all happen at once and it to all happen over a space of 5 years.
Yeah. So where do you go from here then? What stuff do you want to personally kind of work on or have been working on over the off season to come into the 24 season, you know, in the best place that you can be?
So this off season, I've really tried to work on my fitness and my strength. I'm working with Rico Martin this year. He works with a few other athletes. So yeah, we're trying hard on the fitness and strength side of things. I've not done a lot previously. Done a bit, but nothing super serious. So I was like,
How are
this
you
year,
finding it? Because I've heard you say in the past that you hate training, like you're not pedaling or lifting weights, not interested. I want downhill bike time, which has clearly worked, right? But you must feel now that there's a need to have like all the boxes ticked, maybe, to be at that very top all the time.
Yeah, I do hate it. If I wasn't going for wins and everything, I wouldn't do it, you know. But yeah, I think you can't have success without putting in some hard work. So we spoke with Laurent, and weekends like Andorra, where it's a long day, it's a long weekend, like those blocks of 3 weeks in a row where you're racing, you can be good for the first week or two, and then you realise it on the third week, or you realise it on a long day that you need that fitness. And I think especially like Leger, that was the end of like 3 weeks. I know I can ride that track good. It was dry all week, but I just felt tired and didn't feel like my body was at 100%, which it needs to be. So yeah, Laurent suggested that we need to do a bit more. I suggested that I needed to do a bit more. We sat down with Rico, and yeah, we're putting in a lot more work than I used to for the training side of things.
Interesting. Are you feeling any benefits from it yet?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think after Mont Saint Anne, we took some time off, and as soon as I got back into training, I was at my like strength already with doing nothing. So it just shows that because I don't really do a lot, I wasn't very strong or whatever. So now I notice that on a bike or going out for a run or a ride or something, I can notice that I'm fitter and that I'm stronger.
And are you seeing those numbers going up? Like, is that helping you? Do you feel more confident when you see your numbers going up, basically?
Not really. Some people are like, oh, I hit my numbers, like, got a PB today. It's not really that. It's more when I'm on the bike and I notice that, hold on a minute, I've just pulled that gap, or I've just done that corner, and I feel strong about it, and it felt easier than it has done before. So yeah, it's more when I'm on the bike and I notice my strength on the bike.
Nice. Interesting. Are there other elements you've been working on alongside the fitness stuff?
Just trying to be happy. Just do what I want, be happy, and just enjoy it. Like I've said it before, like I just want to enjoy it, but because it all happened so quickly, I didn't really. So just trying to keep that positive attitude, doing the karting, eating some chocolate, you know, just trying to enjoy life.
Good on you, man. And I hear that you're on the new version of the bike for this coming season.
Yeah, we've just got that. We had to wait a bit. But yeah, we've got the bike. We haven't done a lot of downhill riding yet, but it's done a ramp up, and me and Nath have got a trip planned in, I think, about 2 weeks. So we're going to really knuckle down and get some good downhill riding in.
Have you had any chance to swing a leg over that and try it yet? Have you got a feel for like how different it is?
Yeah, so I've only done 1 day on the new bike so far. We did a bit in California, but that was sort of some secret stuff. But yeah, the one I'll be racing this year, I've done 1 day on. And yeah, it felt really good. Obviously, it's completely different, so we need to do a lot of work to it. And we missed a couple weekends, as people might know in the UK, like Dovey's been shut. Other places have been shut. It's been snowed here, like ice there. So it's been hard to ride downhill. But yeah, we've got a lot planned, and I'll be out this weekend on it, hopefully.
Excellent. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how you get on that. What about pitting for a year with Loic and Finn and their mechanics? Have you learned things from them? Have you picked up stuff from the way they operate or the way they do things? Or are you and Nath kind of your own unit? Like, you know, you said you're pretty confident in the way you do stuff, but it must be interesting to see what those guys are up to as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, especially Loic and Jack, like, they're the ones that normally create a new thing, or they're so experienced in what they're doing. And what I've learned from Loic and Jack is that every time they're on the bike and every time they're doing something, they're doing it 100% and they're 100% focused on it. Every time Loic is on the bike, he's focused and he's trying as hard as he can. And Jack is always suggesting things and he's always trying to find these little things. And I think I've taken that on this year. Before, it's been like, oh, I'll just ride down, like, I'll try that next run or whatever. I feel like this year I need to be 100% focused and ready for every time I'm on that bike.
Good stuff, man. And feeling excited for the season? It's still a little way off, but like it's going to come around pretty quickly now.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. Not quite ready yet. But yeah, I'm excited to get back racing, and I feel like I'm going to put everything I've learned these past few years into this year and just try and have the best year I can.
And are you going to be doing much racing before the first World Cup?
I don't think so, no. We're booked on for National Round 1. We wanted to do the race in Taruka, but it's not happening this year, unfortunately. I'm not sure why. But yeah, I think we've got one race booked in, and we'll see if there's any more that pop up, but not too worried about it.
Yeah. And will we see you at any of the Pierce races this year?
We'll see. We'll have to see, because some of them are like a week after a World Cup or they're on the week of the World Cup. If there's a race that I can do or that works for me, I will go and do it. And same with the Nationals. I'll definitely be doing less this year. But if it works and if we feel like we want to do it, we'll go and do it.
Nice one. Well, it was a pleasure to be overtaken by you at Rudderfellen earlier this year, mate. So it's always good to see you when you turn up and show us how it should be done. But yeah, man, it's been super interesting chatting, finding out a little bit about you. We got our final 4 questions that we've asked pretty much everyone. So we'll hit those up really quickly before we finish up. The first one of those, if people had £150 to spend to improve their performance on a bike, what would you recommend they go and spend it on?
£150.
Not a huge amount.
I would say tyres, because I see a lot of people with like crazy worn down tyres, or like even like tubes in, or just not very good tyres on. And I think a good set of tyres can really help.
What are you racing on these days, mostly?
We do a lot on the Specialized Cannonball tyre.
Okay.
It's a good all-round tyre. We rarely use wet tyres unless it's like Leogang crazy mud. But yeah, 90% of the time on the Specialized Cannonball.
All right, nice. Second one, if you could wind back the clock and it's not too far for you, and sit down with your 16-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
Tough question again. Probably just take everything as it comes. Don't get stressed about it. Just try and learn as much as you can from it. And just don't get caught up in stupid things and what people say. Just believe in yourself and believe in the team that's around you.
Nice advice, man. All right, third one. If you could have a coaching session from anyone, past or present, who would it be and what would you want to learn from them?
Coaching session. Oh, it's a hard one. Could it be like say from like 2015.
Yeah, man, from wherever you want.
So when I was in 2015, as everyone was, it'd probably be from like the Athertons, because they were a big thing for me. Same as like Loic. I used to watch all their videos, and I think they were like so cool back then. So I'd love to learn from them. And yeah, probably the Athertons.
Okay, nice. Last one. Is there one thing you do every day that you feel benefits you?
One thing I do every day that benefits me. Smile. Just smile. Just enjoy it. Like, yeah, just enjoy it. I see some kids just not enjoying it, like getting pressured into it or whatever. And it happened to me. When I wasn't enjoying it, I wasn't getting the results. So for me, just enjoy it.
Nice. Yeah, I went to a cross-country race and watched some kids racing earlier in the year, and there was a massive difference. Some of them were absolutely frothing for it, and some of them were in tears, like parents shouting at them, and you're like, that either that's not healthy or racing's not for them. Like, if you don't enjoy it, don't do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, fair play, man. Well, I'm excited to see how this season goes for you, man. It was a roller coaster of a season for you in 23. Incredible to see you take that first win. I'm sure there'll be many more in your career. If people want to follow you and see where all this heads, where should they be looking?
On my Instagram mainly, Jordan Williams 17. Yeah, that's pretty much where it's all at.
Nice one. I'll stick a link in the show notes. People can find that. But yeah, all the best for the upcoming season, and we'll see you at the races.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.